Hello, YouTube. Pastor Jack here. Welcome to my study and welcome to my channel, First Things First with Pastor Jack. It's good to have you here today. We're going to be talking about a culture issue today that has been made evident in the recent days because of what took place with Charlie Kirk. And this is a problem, a culture problem that I'm not going to blame on the church. I'll blame it more on our school system. But it is, I've had three or four different people talk to me about this, and they give me firsthand things that happen in their family or in parts of their family where people had questioned. And I come to realize that people don't know the truth, and it's very important that we understand a few things. So what I want to talk about today is exactly what is freedom of speech. You know, exactly what is freedom of speech. It's the First Amendment. It is, let me say, part of the First Amendment. In the First Amendment, we have freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of being able to gather together, and also freedom of speech. And when you read the First Amendment, it is an agreement between Congress and the people. And it says that Congress will not make a law that limits your ability to go to the church you want to go to. It says that Congress will not make a law that limits your ability to say what you want to say. And that's all it's between. Freedom of speech is not, the article does not say that Congress will enact a law that says that your employer can't limit your speech. That's not freedom of speech. It's not that your parents can't limit your speech. Feel free to talk to my daughters. They're both in their 40s now. They both have kids. One of my grandkids has kids. But ask my daughters, do they have freedom of speech at my house? And they'll tell you no. The First Amendment's not applicable here. It's only applicable to Congress limiting citizens' free speech. Your employer can and should limit your speech. Your parents can and should limit your speech. I watch some of these kids on some social media, and there's some parents somewhere needs to take over and say, look, you need to shut up and you need to stop this because you're going to want a job one of these days, and somebody's going to look at this and you're not going to get it. You're not guaranteed of not being held back because of running your mouth. That's not freedom of speech at all. And we got to go back, and I blame school systems for people not understanding what freedom of speech is. Because when I went to school, and back when we first got off the ark, when I was in the 8th grade, I had to take a year-long course it was a grammar school. You went to the 8th grade in grammar school and you went straight to high school. There wasn't a middle school, junior high, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm speaking from that history, but in the 8th grade, I took a course, Tennessee history. I live in the state of Tennessee, and I took a course on Tennessee history, and I learned about a man named Andrew Jackson, and learned a lot of stuff about Andrew Jackson. Then when I went to high school, I learned a lot of stuff about a lot of different people, and it's been in the political realm of Tennessee, and a lot of stuff about Tennessee. Then went to high school, I had to take a course, and it was mandatory to get you had to take at least 1 year of English, and for the record, that's all I took. And you had to have American history. That was one of the requirements. You could not graduate high school unless you took American history. And when I took American history, I learned about another fellow called John Quincy Adams, who was the 6th president of the United States. And on my computer, I have his inaugural speech because as I read that just as a high schooler, I realized, man, this guy This guy understood what was happening. Of course, his daddy was involved in the writing of the Constitution, John Adams, and he really understood it. And I think God ordained John Quincy Adams to get the job that he got because of the way he got it. It was understand there wasn't a two-party system at the time. So, you could have as many people run for president as I don't think there was a limit. I think you could have as many people run for president as you wanted to. And in the election where John Quincy Adams got elected, which would have been in the year 1824, because he didn't go into office till March of 1825 instead of January, because there was a bunch of turmoil about who won. John Quincy Adams come in third. There was another fellow, I think his name was Monroe, but I'm not 100% sure about that, but he come in second. And then Andrew Jackson come in first. And so none of them had enough electoral votes to get elected. And so the Constitution still says that if somebody don't get, now 270 electoral votes, then it has to go for Congress, and Congress decides who's president. And so that all started taking place, and a guy that come in second really didn't like Andrew Jackson. And so he threw all of his support to John Quincy Adams, and John Quincy Adams won. Now, I want you to put yourself in that position. It's March 1825. John Quincy Adams been voted in by Congress, and he come in third place in the popular vote. The guy that come in first place didn't have a shot. The guy that come in second withdrew and sent all his support to the third place guy, and the third place guy got elected. You're talking about a Civil War conditions, and John Quincy Adams' inaugural speech was one for the history books. You should read it sometime. Because he made sure that everybody understood that now we are, 35 to 50 years past the Constitution being first created. 50 years, something like that. And he said, it's important we go back to the basis here and that we really do what the Constitution says. And he got Andrew Jackson's attention when you study, because Andrew Jackson, 4 years later in 1829, Andrew Jackson become president. So the second guy, his little ploy didn't work. It worked. It kept Andrew Jackson from becoming president 4 years earlier, but it just delayed the inevitable for 4 years. Kind of like a little bit about Biden and Trump here, Whatever took place in 2020, I don't know, but it delayed Trump coming into 2024, and it just delayed the inevitable. But John Quincy Adams' speech was historic in that it really said we need to go back and just look and maintain the Constitution. So Jackson actually did that. Andrew Jackson started the Democrat Party. He come in and said, we have three equal and separate branches of government. And people have forgot that. There's people listening to my channel right now. If you'd be honest, you'd say, well, the president is the executive, the Congress makes laws, and the Supreme Court institutes the Constitution. It's not the way it works. The way it works is there are three separate independent branches from each other. Congress writes laws that support the Constitution. It's what they're supposed to do. The president enforces those laws to support the Constitution. That's what they're supposed to do. And then in the rare occasion that maybe a law got twisted or the way it got implemented violated the Constitution, the Supreme Court comes in and judges whether that law that the Congress wrote or the way the president implemented it was constitutional or not. They don't determine if something's constitutional. Congress is supposed to determine if it's constitutional. The president's supposed to determine if it's constitutional. And the Supreme Court's supposed to determine if it's constitutional. They all are separate and equal. Andrew Jackson, after hearing, no doubt, John Quincy Adams' inaugural address 4 years earlier, said, he's right. So when Andrew Jackson come in, there was a clause State of Georgia wrote. I don't want to get into details. You can read about it. And the Supreme Court said that's unconstitutional. Andrew Jackson looked at him and said, boys, I swore to uphold the Constitution, and I think it's constitutional. So y'all just get on your horses or carriages, whatever they had then, and ride down there and fix it. And they said, no, you have to. And he said, no, I don't. He said, you don't tell me what to do. I think it's constitutional. The Congress down there thinks it's constitutional. It's going to stay just like it is. You do something about it. If you don't do something about it, then I don't know if you noticed, but none of the people that wear guns work for the Supreme Court. None of the people that wear guns work for Congress. All the people that wear guns work for the executive branch. It's the way the Constitution's written. Department of Justice works for the executive branch. Department of War works for the executive branch. So they have to prove to him separate. Don't have to do what they say. Separate entity. And that's the way our Constitution works. So when it comes to freedom of speech, it's a contract between Congress and the people that Congress will not make a law that limits your speech. That does not mean the president can't sign an executive order that says if you burn a flag, and it calls it a right, then you're guilty of treason or whatever he wants to call it. He can say that, and he can sign an executive order, and the people with guns will put you in jail if it causes treason. He said it the way he said it on purpose, so the Supreme Court couldn't come back and say that it's violating the First Amendment. It's not violating the First Amendment. They can still do it as long as they don't cause some kind of other crime when they're doing it. That's the way our Constitution works. Freedom of speech is only between Congress and you, Congress and the people. And we've never had freedom of speech at my house. Ask my girls. Never had freedom of speech. I paid the bills. I kept the lights on. I worked every day. They did what I said. They didn't. I'm sure they thought things different than the way I thought, but they never said it to me. And still today, and they're grown ladies. I promise you, they think things today different than what I think, but they ain't going to talk to me about it because they know they don't have freedom of speech when it comes to my house. And your kids shouldn't have freedom of speech when it comes to your house. This is not a joint adventure raising your family. The Bible says for children to obey their parents. That's the way it's supposed to work. There's nothing wrong with a good, healthy fear of your parents. It will keep you out of trouble. Probably the only reason I'm alive today is because I had a good, healthy fear of my father. If I'd ever got put in jail, I would have asked them, just let me die here. Just, will you feed me at least twice a day? And just don't call nobody and tell them, just let me stay right back here on this bunk. And please don't call my daddy. Whatever you do, don't call my daddy. The last thing in the world I want is my daddy to know about it. That good, healthy fear kept me out of jail and kept me alive. And some kids don't have that anymore. And they think they have freedom of speech, and they shouldn't have at your house. They should not have. And we need to understand that. These people that, after Charlie Kirk, who were making all the bold statements about he deserved it or he got what, they don't have freedom of speech when it comes to their employer. Their employer can fire them for their speech. Another one got fired this week. Yeah, at one of the No Kings rallies. I saw the video. Supposedly a school teacher taking her finger, making it like a gun and putting it to her neck. And she don't work for the school system anymore. I was read this morning. She don't work for that school system. Now she might become chief teacher in charge of the California school system. Who knows? Might. She probably won't get a job in the county I live in. If I find out about it, she will not have a job here anymore. Most of the country, she won't be able to get a job teaching. That's a fact. But, you still have to answer to your employer. I've had people tell me that they had Christians, ask them, say, is it not freedom of speech? Can't they, even though I don't like what they're saying, can't they say it? No, not with their employer. The deal is the government can't keep them from saying it. The Congress can't keep them from saying it, but their employer can. It's happened. It will continue to happen. I only got one guy that works for me, my associate pastor. He's like a son to me. I ain't got to worry about him a bit. But I told him right out, I said, you be careful what you put on social media about this, because you can say what you want, but you can't say what you want and work here. That's a fact. That is a fact. We need to understand about our Constitution. It's important that we understand our Constitution, how it works, and not listen to the news media. They don't have a clue. The things I've told you here today would just go straight over most of the news media's head, because they don't even know that there was a president named John Quincy Adams, because they didn't have to learn about any of it in school. Whenever I laugh all the time. President Trump sits in the Oval Office, the picture he's got right up there, Andrew Jackson, and he points at it. And they all sat there dummies. No. And Andrew Jackson was his president. They don't even know what Andrew Jackson did. They ain't got a clue. He's pointing at it saying, be careful. Be careful, Supreme Court. Do what you're supposed to. Be careful, Congress. Do what you're supposed to. Because the guys with guns work for me. I can't imagine the Supreme Court when Andrew Jackson said, go enforce it yourself. I wished I could have been a fly on the wall. I think about these district judges putting out this stuff. One of these days, he's going to look at him and say, put it where the sun don't shine, buddy. He's going to say that one of these days. I'm telling you, he's going to say it. And he's going to say, enforce it. I want you to come and arrest the director of the FBI. Go, come on. I want that black coat. He said, I'll get the federal marshals work for the Department of Justice. They're going to look at you and say, my boss said not to do anything you said. And then you go arrest, the FBI director. Yeah. Take your black coat and go arrest him. Yeah, never happened. We need to understand, what the First Amendment really says and what it really does. It gives us the ability to not have Congress make a law that limits our speech. I don't mean YouTube can't. They might, if they hear this one, they may not let me make another one. I don't know. If they don't, I'll go to another website and make one on theirs. I'll put it on X. I'll do something. I ain't worried about YouTube. I could care less. They've never sent me a dime, and if they did, I'd probably just go waste it on something. I'd buy me some kind of something for my shop. So I ain't really looking for it. I don't expect them to ever support this channel and put it out for people to see. Only people that see it is generally the people that I send it out to. And I do have like 16,000 subscribers, so I don't know how that happened. I have no idea. But the bottom line is we have a Constitution, and we need to really support it completely, because it's going to keep things in the right order for us. Keep it first things first. And I'll see you on the next video if there is one.